The battlefront was supposed to be lost. At least, that's what every galactic strategist predicted when the Zelvor Dominion, a species renowned for its biological supremacy, launched their invasion of Gliese 581c, humanity's last outpost in the sector. The Dominion's forces were terrifying, *** genetic war beasts, bioplasma artillery, *** and self-repairing warforms that adapted to any environment. No species had ever survived a Zelvor war campaign. And yet, Earth never surrendered. The United Terran Defense Forces, UTDF, had been holding the line on Gliese 581c for 6 grueling months, despite dwindling resources, overwhelming odds, and the enemy's ever-adapting war tactics. Every species in the Galactic Union had already marked them as dead men walking, a footnote in the history of lost wars. But humans weren't playing by the rules. Commander Elias Voss stood atop a crumbling bunker, scanning the smoke-filled horizon with weary but unbroken eyes. The night was alive with Zelvor warforms screeching in the dark, their luminescent blood splattering the battlefield where they fell. Behind him, in the ruins of the UTDF command center, Captain Naomi Briggs was patching up a wounded soldier using a medical kit repurposed from scavenged enemy biotech. Supplies had run dry months ago, but humans had become masters of improvisation. They had long since abandoned standard protocols in favor of survival engineering, using whatever they could steal, repurpose, or invent on the fly. Their resistance tactics were unorthodox, unpredictable, exactly what made them impossible to exterminate. "How long until they hit us again?" Briggs asked, her voice tight with exhaustion but still filled with fire. Voss exhaled, watching the eerie green glow of Zelvor warforms massing in the distance. "They're learning," he said. "But so are we." The Dominion had crushed empires that once ruled for millennia. They had never encountered an enemy like humanity, ***, a species that got stronger the more they suffered, ***. Where other species would crumble, humans adapted. Where others broke, humans became desperate, clever, and ruthless. The Zelvor had initially relied on brute force, using biological titan beasts to obliterate defensive lines. But after weeks of battle, the humans had found ways to starve them out, poison their food sources, and even weaponize their own corpses against them. Then, the Dominion shifted tactics, deploying neural disruptors to disable enemy soldiers. The humans countered by training their minds to resist, rewiring their own nervous systems through sheer willpower and experimental drugs. Now, the enemy was adapting again. The Zelvor had unleashed a new wave of war forms, ones immune to previous countermeasures. But humans had one advantage the Dominion never accounted for. They never gave up. In the underground bunker, a group of exhausted engineers and scientists huddled around a crude makeshift lab, working on something new. Dr. Alan Pritchard, a former civilian biochemist turned war scientist, wiped the sweat from his brow as he held up a glowing vial. "We found it," he whispered. The soldiers around him stopped breathing. "Explain," Briggs demanded, stepping forward. Pritchard's hands trembled as he set the vial down. "Their biology is superior, but it's also fragile in ways they don't realize," he said. "We've developed a compound that can override their adaptive evolution. If this works, we won't just survive. We'll turn their own biology against them." Voss studied the vial for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Time to show the galaxy what survival really looks like." The Zelvor had never encountered a species like humanity. Their genetic warforms, adaptable, self-repairing, and biologically superior, had crushed countless civilizations. Yet, on the charred battlefields of Gliese 581c, they were beginning to falter. Not because of superior firepower. Not because of greater numbers. But because humans refused to break. Underground bunker, Sector Delta 9. The air was thick with tension as Dr. Alan Pritchard set the vial of experimental Zelvor disruptor compound on the makeshift lab table. The glowing substance shimmered, an eerie blue-green hue swirling inside the reinforced glass. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Commander Elias Voss asked, arms crossed. His eyes flickered toward Captain Naomi Briggs, who had been the first to volunteer for testing. Pritchard hesitated. Nothing is ever certain. But based on the Zelvor's biological structure, this should force their adaptive genes into a state of self-conflict. Instead of evolving against us, they'll start evolving against themselves. Briggs smirked, rolling up her sleeve. Sounds like exactly what we need. A few minutes later, as Pritchard injected the serum into a captive Zelvor warform, the creature's bioluminescent eyes darkened. Its body twitched violently, muscles spasming as if fighting against something invisible. Then, to everyone's shock, it started attacking itself. The warform's claws slashed across its own flesh, its regenerative abilities turning against it, causing it to grow unstable mutations. The bunker fell into stunned silence. It works. Pritchard breathed. Voss didn't hesitate. Scale it up. We're about to rewrite the rules of war. Battlefront, outskirts of colony ruins. The next Zelvor assault came at dawn. Their forces moved like a tidal wave of nightmares, six-limbed warforms skittering across the ruined cityscape, tentacled biodrones weaving through the smoke, and towering behemoths with plasma-secreting glands stomping forward with terrifying purpose. It was supposed to be an extermination strike. Instead, it became the turning point. Hidden among the debris, human strike teams fired modified biochemical rounds into the Zelvor ranks. At first, it seemed like nothing happened. Then, ****chaos***. The warforms began thrashing violently, turning on one another. Some collapsed into grotesque mutations, unable to control their own regenerating bodies. Others grew unstable mutations so rapidly that they collapsed under their own weight. For the first time in the war, the Zelvor panicked. And humans charged. Captain Naomi Briggs led the assault, her combat knife coated in a fast-acting version of the serum. She cut through the battlefield with brutal efficiency, dodging collapsing Zelvor corpses as they self-destructed in waves of uncontrolled mutations. Her radio crackled. Briggs! The enemy is pulling back, ****, there, holy shit, they're running. Voss's voice came through next, sharp and decisive. We don't let them escape. Hunt them down. For 6 months, the humans had been on the defensive. Now, for the first time, they were the predators. Zelvor command ship, high orbit over Gliese, 581c. The Zelvor supreme strategist, Vakurzen, watched in horror as his forces fell apart. Their flawless biological supremacy, ***corrupted, ***. Unacceptable, he hissed, his neural tendrils twitching in distress. A junior strategist, his voice shaky, spoke up. The humans have evolved countermeasures. We are experiencing biological destabilization at an exponential rate. Vakurzen's multiple pupilless eyes widened. For the first time in Dominion history, an enemy was adapting faster than they were. The war had changed. And suddenly, the outcome was no longer certain. The war had entered a new phase. For 6 months, humanity had been fighting just to survive. But now, the Zelvor Dominion, a species that had never been outmatched in biological warfare, ***, was losing control of its own evolution, ***. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy witnessed something impossible. Humanity was outadapting the apex predators. Gliese, 581c, Human Forward Base, Outpost Revenant. The bunker was alive with a sense of something unfamiliar, hope. Tactical maps flickered on hacked Dominion displays, showing Zelvor units retreating en masse. The warforms that once evolved to counter every strategy were now in chaos, as their own genetics betrayed them. Commander Elias Voss stood at the center of the war table, listening to field reports. They're abandoning entire battalions. Some of their own soldiers are attacking each other. Captain Naomi Briggs grinned, leaning against the table. Guess they don't like being on the receiving end of evolution. But Voss wasn't smiling. They're not beaten yet, he said. They're learning. Just like us. The room went quiet. Pritchard, the biochemist responsible for the anti-Zelvor serum, nodded grimly. We forced their evolution into overdrive, but that means they'll adapt again. Fast. Voss exhaled sharply. Then we push harder. Before they can recover. Zelvor War Command, Encrypted Neural Nexus. Supreme Strategist Vakurzen was experiencing something no Zelvor had ever known, fear, The humans had turned biological warfare into a two-way street. Every countermeasure the Dominion deployed, the humans countered faster. The warforms that should have overwhelmed them were now liabilities. The Dominion's perfect genetic supremacy had been shattered. But the Zelvor were not a species that accepted defeat. Initiate Directive X-9, Vakurzen ordered. A ripple of uncertainty passed through the biological neural network of his advisors. But Supreme One, that has never been tested. Vakurzen's eyes darkened. Neither has defeat. Within seconds, the Zelvor fleet's bioengines began restructuring their genetic war protocols. They would not just adapt to survive. They would become something new. Gliese 581C, Human Observation Post, Sector Omega. Sergeant Luis Ortega had seen a lot of horrors in the past 6 months. But nothing like this. Through the cracked visor of his HUD, he watched as the Zelvor stopped running. The mutations that had once torn them apart? Now stabilizing. Something was happening. Command, this is Ortega. We've got a problem. A heartbeat later, the first evolved Zelvor emerged from the ruins. They were faster. Smarter. Stronger, And worst of all, they were learning human tactics, Human Command Center. The war table flashed red as real-time reports flooded in. Pritchard's hands trembled as he analyzed the data. They're absorbing the damage. The mutations, it's not killing them anymore. It's making them, resistant, Voss finished. Briggs cursed. What the hell are we supposed to do now? Voss's jaw clenched. The same thing we always do. Briggs met his gaze. Adapt. Voss turned to the engineers, his voice sharp. If they can evolve past the virus, then we hit them with something they can't evolve past, firepower. A slow smile spread across Pritchard's face. Commander, I think I know exactly what we need. Zelvor War Nest, deep orbit over Gliese 581C. Vakurzen watched the planet below with cold resolve. The humans were still dangerous, still unpredictable, but now, the Dominion had taken their greatest weakness, static evolution, and turned it into their weapon. The next battle would not be like the last. This was no longer a war of attrition. This was a war of becoming. And only one species would emerge from it alive. The war had changed again. What started as a battle for survival had become an arms race of evolution. Humanity had forced the Zelvor to adapt in ways they had never needed before. But now, the Dominion had caught up. The Zelvor weren't just countering the human bioweapon, they were learning human tactics. They weren't just mutating, they were strategizing. And for the first time in the war, humanity was at risk of falling behind. Gliese 581C, Forward Human Stronghold, Outpost Revenant. The command center was filled with frantic voices. Holographic displays showed real-time battlefield losses. The Zelvor, now resistant to the mutation serum, had launched a coordinated counterattack. And it was working. They're no longer breaking down, Pritchard reported, eyes darting across his data readouts. The new Zelvor forms are stabilizing. Faster reflexes. Enhanced coordination. Some of them are even using our own captured weapons against us. Briggs slammed her fist against the console. God damn it, so what now? They're just gonna keep getting stronger? Voss remained quiet for a moment, staring at the map as enemy markers began pushing deeper into human territory. Then, his eyes narrowed. No, he said. We just need to push them harder than they can keep up with. Briggs arched an eyebrow. You got a plan, Commander? Voss turned to Pritchard. How fast can we modify the virus? The scientist hesitated. It took months to develop the first strain. Even if we start now, they'll adapt before we can deploy a new version. Voss nodded slowly. Then we don't fight their biology. We fight their mind. Zelvor Forward Command occupied human territory. Supreme Strategist Vakurzen stood among his evolving warriors, watching them train. This was unheard of. The Zelvor had never needed to train before, **** they adapted, **** they conquered through superior biological supremacy, not learned behavior. Yet, here they were. Their warriors were now practicing formations. Using strategy, predicting enemy movements. All because of the humans. They force us to change, Vakurzen mused, watching a warform dismantle a captured UTDF rifle, reload it, and fire with precision. Then let us change faster. He turned to his neural engineers. Prepare the hive synapse. If they wish to fight intelligence, let us show them what true evolution looks like. Please, 581C, Human Stronghold, 3 hours later. The first wave hit like nothing before. Humans had been used to Zelvor forces behaving like biological war machines, instinct-driven, overwhelming, but predictable. This was something else. Zelvor strike teams infiltrated human trenches, using cover, setting traps, baiting soldiers into kill zones, their warform synchronized movements, covering each other, maximizing efficiency. They no longer threw themselves at human weapons, they maneuvered around them. And worst of all, ***, they anticipated counterattacks before humans could make them, ***. They're in our goddamn heads. Briggs shouted as she ducked behind cover, watching a Zelvor soldier flank a human position with military precision. Voss's face was grim as he barked into his comms. Fall back to Sector 12. We need to regroup, ***. The radio cut out. A chilling realization sank into the room. The Zelvor had hacked their communications. For the first time in the war, humanity was truly on the defensive. Zelvor War Nest, orbiting Gliese, 581C. Vakurzen watched through the neural synapse, his mind now linked with thousands of his warriors. Through their eyes, he saw human fear. Through their minds, he felt human desperation. For the first time in Dominion history, the Zelvor were fighting as a single, intelligent force, a true hive mind. And in that moment, Vakurzen knew, ***, the humans could no longer win, ***. The war was no longer a battle of biology. It was a battle of minds. And the Zelvor had finally evolved past the need for individual thought. Gliese, 581C, Human Underground Command Bunker. Briggs, bloodied and out of breath, stumbled into the command center. The room was in chaos, engineers trying to rebuild lost comms, officers desperately rerouting defenses, medics dragging in wounded soldiers from the front lines. Voss stood in the center of it all, eyes dark with calculation. They're inside our strategy, he muttered. They're not just adapting their bodies. They're adapting their intelligence. Pritchard paled. That means, if we don't change the way we fight, we're done. Briggs wiped the blood from her face. Then let's do what we do best. Voss turned to her. And what's that? She grinned. Break the rules. Part 4 ends. The Zelvor have evolved past biology, they are now a synchronized, hive-mind intelligence, capable of countering human tactics in real time. Humanity is losing ground fast. Now, the only way to survive is to fight dirty. The war was no longer about brute strength. It wasn't even about survival anymore. Now, it was about who could outthink the other first. The Zelvor's new hive mind had turned their forces into a synchronized, evolving war machine. Their ability to predict and counter human tactics made direct combat almost suicidal. But humans had one advantage the Zelvor couldn't evolve into: unpredictability. It was time to fight dirty. Gliese, 581C, Human Underground Bunker, Strategic War Room. Commander Elias Voss stood over the hollow table, studying the latest battle reports. Every attempt at traditional warfare had ended the same way: disaster. Naomi Briggs sat nearby, wrapping a bloody bandage around her arm. "We can't beat them in open combat. They're too connected now. Their reaction time is faster than ours." Pritchard, running analysis from his console, nodded grimly. "They don't hesitate. They don't argue. Every Zelvor soldier acts with perfect coordination." Voss exhaled slowly. "And that's their weakness." Briggs frowned. "How the hell is that a weakness?" Voss turned to her, a rare, dangerous smirk crossing his face. "Because they don't expect chaos." Briggs blinked, then her expression shifted into something almost feral. Oh, I like where this is going." Zelvor War Nest, orbiting Gliese, 581c. Supreme Strategist Vakerzen monitored the human movements through the hive synapse, his consciousness flowing through thousands of warforms at once. Every time the humans tried to resist, the Dominion anticipated it. Every time they mounted a defense, it was already countered. They were falling apart. It was only a matter of time before the last remnants of their species were eradicated. Yet, something felt off. The humans weren't retreating. They weren't surrendering. They were changing. Gliese, 581c, human counteroffensive begins. The first attack made no tactical sense. Human soldiers charged straight into enemy territory, screaming at the top of their lungs, weapons blazing wildly. Some were even firing at nothing, deliberately wasting ammunition. The Zelvor, expecting a coordinated strike, hesitated. The hive mind struggled to understand the erratic behavior. The humans were making the worst possible decisions, but they weren't dying in expected numbers. Then the second wave hit. Explosives were detonated in random patterns, not targeting key structures but causing maximum confusion. Humans used their own dead as decoys, mimicking false attack formations before vanishing into the ruins. And then came the fake transmissions. Human comm channels, which had been compromised, suddenly exploded with conflicting orders. Some squads openly broadcast plans for a massive assault, which never came. Others screamed in panic, reporting fake ambushes that didn't exist. The Zelvor's hive mind, trained to interpret and counter structured warfare, was being flooded with noise. It was too much data, too many conflicting signals. For the first time since forming the hive mind, the Zelvor started making mistakes. Zelvor War Nest, encrypted neural core. Vakerzen felt the chaos infecting the hive. Conflicting orders. Fragmented counterattacks, **** units overcommitting to fake engagements. Other battalions hesitating, unsure if they were reacting to real threats or deception. His mind pulsed with frustration. They're using their weakness as a weapon. He realized. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to break the hive mind itself. And it was working. Human forward base, outpost Revenant. Briggs laughed as another Zelvor warband walked straight into a kill zone, reacting to a fake distress call. "This is insane," she said between breaths. "They can't tell what's real anymore." Pritchard's fingers danced over his console. "The hive mind relies on perfect coordination. But we've overloaded it with too many unpredictable inputs. It can't handle this much disinformation." Voss watched as battlefield reports flashed green, for the first time in weeks, human victories. "Keep it up," he ordered. "We don't need to destroy them. We just need to break their connection." Briggs grinned. "And when we do?" Voss's eyes hardened. "Then we burn them to the ground." Zelvor Neural Nexus, deep orbit. The hive mind was fracturing. Vakerzen could feel the strain, too many independent signals, too many false inputs. The humans had found the one flaw in the hive. It couldn't handle chaos. "Disconnect unstable units," he ordered, severing thousands of warforms from the collective. The network shrank, stabilizing. But in doing so, he had just sacrificed a portion of his own forces. And the humans weren't stopping. They had realized the truth. If they couldn't beat the hive mind, they could force it to collapse under its own weight. Gliese, 581C, Human Frontline Command. The tide had turned. Zelvor forces were becoming disorganized, their once flawless coordination splintering. Isolated war bands, severed from the hive, began retreating or self-destructing. Briggs wiped the sweat from her brow. They're losing control. Pritchard nodded. If we keep the pressure up, their entire network could collapse. Voss clenched his fists. Then we hit them with everything we've got. Because now, for the first time in the war, humanity had the upper hand. Part 5 ends. The Zelvor's hive mind has been destabilized. Humanity is exploiting its greatest weakness, overload. Now, the Dominion is at risk of collapsing under its own intelligence. But Vakurzen still has one last move left. The Zelvor had never been this close to defeat. For the first time in their existence, evolution had failed them, their ability to adapt had been turned against them. The humans had found a way to overload their hive mind, forcing confusion, chaos, and unpredictability into their perfect system. And it was working. But Supreme Strategist Vakurzen was not finished yet. If the humans could fight dirty, so could the Dominion. Zelvor War Nest, deep orbit over Gliese, 581C. Vakurzen stood before the neural core, his mind stretched across the hive network, feeling the instability. The once flawless unity of his forces had fractured, the humans' deception attacks had forced him to cut off entire battalions to preserve control. The Zelvor were still powerful, they still had superior numbers, firepower, and resilience. But for the first time, they were at a disadvantage. We must evolve once more, Vakurzen declared. If our hive mind is vulnerable, then we must remove its weakness. His neural engineers hesitated. You mean, decentralization? Vakurzen's eyes burned. Yes. The Zelvor had always relied on perfect unity, every soldier connected in real time to a single intelligence. It made them efficient, but it also made them predictable. But if humans thrived on independent thought and chaos, then the Zelvor would steal that power for themselves. Gliese, 581C, Human Forward Base, Outpost Revenant. Briggs laughed as she watched the battle reports flood in. They're crumbling, she grinned. Their units aren't responding as fast. Their formations are falling apart. Pritchard checked his scanners. Their hive network is still active, but something's different. They're cutting off units on purpose? Voss leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Why would they do that? Then his stomach dropped. Wait. Before he could finish, the Zelvor counterattack began. Human frontlines, Sector 14. The UTDF soldiers were expecting confusion. They had been baiting Zelvor forces into traps all day, using deception and misinformation to keep them disorganized. But this time was different. The first wave of Zelvor didn't hesitate, they didn't falter, they fought like humans. They flanked properly. They coordinated in smaller groups, adapting on the fly. They ignored false signals and only responded to real threats. And worst of all, they were unpredictable, The first human trenches fell in under 10 minutes. A squad leader screamed into his comms, "They're not fighting like before." I repeat, Static. Briggs and Voss watched in horror as Zelvor units began adapting to their own tactics. They broke the hive, Pritchard whispered. They're acting as independent cells. Briggs slammed a fist against the table. Son of a... We taught them how to fight like us. Zelvor War Nest, deep orbit. Vakurzen smiled for the first time in his life. The humans had thought their individuality was their greatest strength. Now, the Zelvor had it too. Deploy the Prime Executors, he ordered. Let them lead the war with their own minds. Across the battlefield, elite Zelvor commanders, each thinking for themselves, began deploying new tactics. Ambushes. Psychological warfare. Deception. The humans had won the first battle of intelligence. Now, it was time for the next evolution. Gliese, 581C, Human Command Center. The counterattack was devastating. Human forces, caught off guard, were losing territory fast. Their greatest advantage, unpredictability, was now neutralized. The Zelvor had evolved past the hive. Voss clenched his fists. We need to change our strategy, fast. Briggs gritted her teeth. How? We had one advantage, and now they stole it. Pritchard's hands shook as he pulled up new scans from Zelvor transmissions. His face went pale. They didn't just break their hive mind. They've created commanders. Actual individuals. The room went silent. Voss exhaled slowly. Then we kill them. Briggs blinked. Wait, what? Voss turned to face them, his voice cold and sharp. Before, they were a machine. If we damaged one part, the whole system suffered. But now? They have leaders. They have officers. And if we kill them, ***. Briggs grinned, finally getting it. We throw them into chaos all over again. Voss nodded. We go for the head. Zelvor War Nest, Neural Command Center. Vakerzen was already preparing for the final assault. The humans had been impressive. But now, the Zelvor had surpassed them. Their decentralized commanders would ensure total victory. But even he had not considered one possibility. That humans would stop fighting a war. And start assassinating leaders. Gliese, 581C, Human Special Forces Briefing. Voss gathered his best operatives, snipers, saboteurs, infiltrators. Briggs tightened her gloves. You want us to go into the heart of the swarm and take out their new commanders? That's a suicide mission. Voss locked eyes with her. So was this entire war. But we're still here. Pritchard pulled up Zelvor comms. We have their locations. If we take them out fast enough, we can throw their forces into confusion before they stabilize. Briggs exhaled. All right. Then let's make sure this next evolution is their last. The Zelvor had evolved. They had abandoned their single consciousness and adapted into a network of individual leaders. It made them more unpredictable, more deadly, and for a moment, humanity feared they had just created their own doom. But in doing so, the Zelvor had made one fatal mistake. They had given humanity something to kill. Gliese, 581C, Human Forward Base, Outpost Revenant. Voss stood in the war room, a holomap glowing in front of him. 5 major Zelvor prime executors had emerged as dominant leaders, each controlling a sector of the warfront. We take them out, we break their entire strategy, Voss said, looking at his assembled operatives. No command, no coordination. The rest of their forces will fall apart. Briggs cracked her knuckles. It's an assassination run. Pritchard nodded. The executors aren't connected like the old hive mind. They rely on direct communication now. Cut the head off the snake, ***. And the body dies, Voss finished. Let's end this. Zelvor Warfront, Sector 1. The first kill was silent. Prime Executor Kralzen was overseeing troop deployments from an elevated position. He didn't even hear the bullet. A human sniper, 3 kilometers away, fired a high-caliber round enhanced with Zelvor biodisruptor agents. The shot pierced his exoskeletal skull, and in less than 2 seconds, his body melted from the inside. By the time his guards reacted, the shooter was already gone. Zelvor forces hesitated. For the first time in the war, their leader had not transferred control upon death. They were lost. Zelvor Warfront, Sector 2. The second was a bombing. Prime Executor Vorzek was stationed inside a massive warmech, directing battle strategy in real time. He felt untouchable. Until the humans sent in a fake distress call. When Zelvor units responded, they unknowingly carried a neurovirus payload, uploaded into Vorzek's command interface. In less than a minute, his own warmech turned on him, locking him inside as it self-destructed. Another leader, **** gone, ****. Zelvor Warfront, Sector 3. The third assassination was brutal. Prime Executor Zalrun was directing frontline operations when an infiltration team ambushed him. The humans fought feral, savage, desperate. Zalrun never expected them to be this close. Briggs herself plunged a plasma dagger into his throat, whispering, "We learned this trick from you." By the time his forces realized their leader was dead, it was too late. Zelvor War Front, final targets. With 3 executors down, the Zelvor lines were already falling apart. The 4th Prime Executor, Talven, attempted to retreat into orbit. But human forces had already anticipated it. As his command ship rose, an experimental railgun fired from the planet's surface. The impact split the vessel in two. Talven died before he could even give his last order. Only one leader remained. Zelvor War Nest, Supreme Strategist Vakurzen. Vakurzen felt his empire crumbling. The humans had done the impossible. They had assassinated 4 prime executors in a single coordinated strike. Now, their forces were in full disarray. They were becoming what the humans once were, fragmented, lost, struggling to find direction. And Vakurzen knew, he was next, Please, 581C, Human Command Assault Team. Voss led the final attack himself. The Zelvor War Nest was collapsing. Dozens of human drop teams breached the station, fighting their way through corridors slick with Zelvor blood. Finally, Voss reached the core chamber. There, standing alone, was Vakurzen, the supreme strategist of the Zelvor Dominion. The mind that had once controlled an entire empire. Now, he had no one left to command. Vakurzen looked at the humans surrounding him. His bioluminescent eyes flickered, processing the final realization. Humans weren't the strongest. Humans weren't the fastest. Humans weren't the most advanced. But they were the most relentless. They had survived everything the Zelvor had thrown at them. And in the end, they had adapted faster. You should not have won, Vakurzen admitted. Voss raised his sidearm, aiming at the last leader of the Zelvor Dominion. But we did. One shot. And the war was over. Epilogue, the ultimate survivors. The Zelvor, once an unstoppable force, had been reduced to scattered warbands. With their leadership wiped out, their empire collapsed overnight. Humanity, on the brink of extinction, had done what no species in the galaxy had ever done before. They had taken on a perfect enemy. They had been outmatched, outgunned, outnumbered. And they had won. Briggs, standing on the ruined battlefield, looked at the burning Zelvor strongholds in the distance. So what now? Voss exhaled, looking up at the sky. Now? A slow, determined smile crossed his face. Now, we rebuild. And we make sure no one ever underestimates humanity again.